Matt Schneidman Show, Monday, September 30th, the last day of September. I'm 29 years old, and I still do 30 days, have September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31, except for February is 28, to figure out how many days are in each month.
I do that too, and I'm well over 29. I have a different ending at the end that's a little not safe for work, though,
Oh,
except
okay.
for February, which is all blanked up. That's how I end it.
Well, the last day of September, it's still 83 degrees here in Green Bay, which is nice. I'd rather that over frigid cold in winter, but I would like it to settle at around 60 to 65 degrees. That would be ideal. You're not here for a weather report. You're here for Packers talk, and that's what we're here to deliver to you today. Vikings 31, Packers 29. I would say the game wasn't as close as the final score indicates, but it was. The Packers put forth a valiant second half effort to bring that game within one score, 6 points in the middle of not in the middle of the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter. They cut it to 6 with 10:16 remaining, and then they cut it to 2 right at the end there before the onside kick, drop kick, whatever Daniel Whelan did. Ultimately, the Packers dug themselves too big of a hole. We'll get to it all today. Jordan Love's performance in his first game back, the kicking situation, the pass rush kind of falling off a cliff after last week's dominance in Tennessee, and a lot more here on the Matt Schneidman Show on Monday. Doug, your biggest takeaway from the game was what? Because I have mine, but I want to let you go first.
The biggest takeaway that I have is that, well, they didn't quit because they did just about everything poorly that you could possibly do in the first half. You get down 28-0. You talked about the pass rush, which was non-existent. Stupid penalties. I know that having a depleted defensive secondary wasn't ideal with Jair Alexander and Carrington Valentine unable to play, but that didn't explain the complete ineptitude of the offense. I know the Vikings are a good team. I don't want to take anything away from what they were able to do, but the Packers just made every first half mistake that you could possibly make. But they didn't give up, and they did make it a game. And like you said, I mean, the final score is indicative of how close it was because it truly was a tale of two halves. And the Packers just came out a little bit short because they dug themselves in just too big of a hole.
Let's start with the starting quarterback. There's a lot to get to, but the starting quarterback is where this team starts and ends, as is the case with every team. Jordan Love wasn't his best in his first game back. He's still playing through somewhat of a knee injury. He didn't say that specifically after the game, but when asked if he would have to deal with this throughout the whole season, he didn't go as far to say that, but he said it's still there, meaning he's still playing through it. He's not 100%. When he took that hit in the first half on that 6-yard scramble on 3rd and 6, and I think someone kind of fell on the back of his left knee, if I'm not mistaken. He said it was painful. He got up, was limping, but he didn't miss a snap, stayed in the game. So he's okay coming out of the game, relatively speaking. Matt LaFleur said today he was sore, but he's fine. After the adrenaline wore off, obviously. Jordan Love said himself he had some accuracy issues. When asked about Dontavian Wicks after the game yesterday, he said, I didn't help him at all. I didn't put the ball in good spots. And it wasn't like Jordan Love was airmailing it into the fourth row. It was more like his passes were a couple inches off, couple feet off, and it just made catches more difficult. The Packers coaches are going to grade these as drops for the receivers because they do that for any ball that hits your hand, but Jordan Love could have made it easier on his receivers. He said his accuracy was a little all over the place, is how he put it. And I would agree. At the same time, he set career highs in passing yards and, touchdown passes. All that means so much because you still lost the game and you threw 2 interceptions that were his fault. And you could argue that the second one was his fault too, based on what Matt LaFleur said today. And we'll get into that a little bit later. I think we have some audio of Matt LaFleur talking about that play. But Jordan Love, imperfect. I don't think anyone expected perfection from him in his first game back. But as he plays through that knee injury, plenty to clean up as the Packers head to Los Angeles this weekend.
Yeah, lots to clean up. And, I know we'll get into the kicking game as well, but that was just something else that kind of stuck out to in my mind as well. You can't miss 2 kicks. One was with the wind, one was against the wind. You doink a 39-yarder. That's not going to be great. Jordan Love's probably going to get the lion's share of attention, as most quarterbacks should. But, with Jordan, I think he did have to knock some rust off. But, when you talk about what my overriding, thought of the game was, it's that, a lot of teams would kind of roll up and quit, and the Packers did. I still think that they're as good as anybody in the NFC. They just didn't show it in the first half of the game. Part of it was rust. Part of it was, some self-inflicted wounds. There were a lot of self-inflicted wounds, especially in the first half of this game. But overall, I don't come away from this game feeling awful about it. I feel like it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. Now, people are saying this online, and I agree with them. Isaiah McDuffie dropping that interception on the opening drive probably would have changed things a little bit.
Yeah, it would have.
Because the Vikings score a couple plays later, go up 7-0, and it's 21-0 after 3 drives. The game's not over, but out of realistic reach, just like that. And you mentioned shooting themselves in the foot. Matt LaFleur talked about that a little bit today, how they got to stop with these false starts, the, holdings, the offsides. Right now, the Packers rank tied for 3rd in the NFL with 34 penalties against. That's terrible. Now, they only had 7. I shouldn't say they only had 7. What I meant to say is they only had 1 in the second half, Tucker Kraft's holding penalty that negated that 23-yard Emmanuel Wilson run to the Vikings' 11-yard line, I believe it was, on a first down. So 7 of their penalties came in the first half. The positive, they cleaned up things as the game went on, and that's part of the reason they were able to get back in it. The negative, they haven't figured out their penalty problems, and we're 4 games into the season with the Packers ranking tied for 4th. And Matt LaFleur said today, basically, it's infuriating when we're losing these close games. They lost by 2 points to the Vikings. They lost by 5 points to the Eagles, right? 34-29 was that game?
That sounds right. Yeah, it was
close.
It was a close game.
And these penalties are huge difference makers. You have Eric Stokes' defensive pass interference, which, you could argue could have gone one way or the other. And that gives the Vikings a first down at the 3-yard line, I think it was, when they would have kicked the field goal. So that's 4 points right there. Or you could look at Kraft's holding call that negated Emmanuel Wilson's run, and the Packers turned the ball over on downs later that drive. I mean, there's a lot that you could go through, and the Packers just continually shoot themselves in the foot, and that's not a sustainable way to win.
No, it is not. I do have a bit of breaking sort of ish news. It's not for Packers fans necessarily, but Packers fans and Brewers fans overlap. The Braves did beat the Mets 3-0, so it'll be the Brewers and the Mets in the wild card round starting tomorrow at as spoken as a New Yorker.
Brewers.
So it'll be the Brewers and the Mets starting tomorrow at American Family Field. That just happened. By the way, there's a double celebration going on in both the Braves and Mets clubhouses right now, which is the weirdest thing to watch ever in life. But
yeah,
I
will root against the Mets and Red Sox any chance I get. So
go
Brewers.
Fair enough. Go Brewers. But I'm sorry. Go on. You that was just a little bit of breaking news.
Died too.
I'm sorry. What?
Pete Rose just died.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So did Dikembe Mutombo this morning too.
I know.
Wow. Okay.
Tough day.
Wow. Weird day. Couple of days.
I don't know how to transition out of that.
It's an odd transition. But I did want to get that part of the breaking news. And as far as the Brewers, but condolences to the Dikembe Mutombo and Pete Rose families. I had no idea about Pete Rose until now.
Oh, it just happened. How much do you think Jair Alexander's absence hurt the Packers? Because as we talked about last week on Thursday, well, I think we talked about it on Thursday's Football Feast. We didn't have a show Friday. Jeff Hafley basically implied on Thursday, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I don't think I am, that Jair Alexander was going to follow Justin Jefferson. In, not these exact words, he said, if we need to do something unconventional and have our best players guard their best players, we're going to do it. Jeff Hafley said, I'm not so full of myself that I think a scheme alone can stop great players. Great players can stop great players is basically what he said. And the way I read that was, Jair Alexander is going to follow Justin Jefferson. That did not happen because Jair suffered a groin injury, I believe it was, in Thursday's practice. Didn't practice Friday. Didn't play Sunday. Matt LaFleur said yesterday after the game that he doesn't think it's too significant, the injury. But now you have Eric Stokes and Keyshawn Nixon on Justin Jefferson, and they're not good enough. Point blank. And
they are. Sorry.
I don't know how much Jair fixes things, but I think he definitely fixes things. Justin didn't have the gaudiest stat line he's ever had against the Packers. I think he had 6 for 85 and a touchdown. But Packers, don't want to say were helpless against Justin Jefferson, but I think it's safe to say they certainly could have used number 23 against him.
There's no question. I mean, did the Packers miss Jair Alexander? Absolutely. But if you look at Jefferson's stat line and you just went through it, I mean, 6 catches, 85 yards. He's a great player. One of the best wide receivers,
the best, I think.
Okay. I was going to say top 3, but I can't sign off, or I can't argue with the best. I mean, he's an elite player, elite wide receiver. They didn't stop him, but they contained him a little bit. I mean, it's not like he went off. We've seen certainly bigger outings from Justin Jefferson. I think that was the biggest concern that most Packers fans had going into the game, knowing, at 10:30 that Jair wasn't going to be able to play when he was listed in the on the inactive list. So the ability to, and it's not like Sam Darnold had a very good game. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 275 yards, 20 of 28. But Jefferson didn't kill them. He, had an okay day for him. Very good day for many others. But I didn't think that, when all was said and done, the Packers didn't have a chance because they didn't have Jair Alexander on the field. Would have helped, but I don't think he was the true difference maker in this one. I think kind of the Packers beat themselves.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he was the true difference maker. I'm just saying it would have helped.
Sure.
Because, I don't know what Keyshawn Nixon could have done on that touchdown catch. It was just a phenomenal throw and catch. Nixon had fine coverage, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Then Stokes loses Jefferson twice on those crossing routes. Or no, it was Nixon the first time, and then Stokes the second time when he got caught up in the tight end crosser from the other side of the line of scrimmage on that field goal drive that the Vikings had after the Packers cut it to 6. Jefferson got open for gains of 17 and 27 on that drive. And then Stokes' pass interference on him. Again, as John Kuhn said this morning, he thinks it was probably more offensive pass interference. But look, they made the call. That's what it is. So we'll see if Jair can get back on Sunday. A little piece of news coming out of Sean McVay's press conference just now. No Cooper Kupp for the Rams on Sunday. He's eligible to come back, obviously, because they never put him on IR, but the Rams have a bye week next week, so they're not going to play him now. Rest him. So the Rams will not have either Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp, their top 2 receivers, for this game. So that's not to say the Packers can afford to be without Carrington Valentine and Jair Alexander again, but maybe they can get away with it if indeed they are without them again.
Yeah, without, either Nacua or Kupp, that certainly is going to, tamp down what Matthew Stafford's able to do with the Rams. I mean, I think this is an opportunity game for the Packers to go out on the road. Anytime you go out on the West Coast, things can get a little bit weird. The Packers have shown that out in San Francisco. Certainly more times. I mean, they played the 49ers, it seems like, every single season for the last 10 years. Yeah. But things do get a little bit weird when you go out there. I think this is an opportunity for the Packers to maybe get right against a team that I think they're significantly better than, especially when you've got their 2 best receivers that are out. And they've got a Hall of Fame quarterback who is playing I don't know if he's putting out on 17 yet, but he's getting close. I mean, the injury situation is one of those things that now you get into week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8, they do pile up a little bit. I think the Packers, you look at the CVS receipt that their injury list is, and it wasn't that bad with the exception of Jair Alexander and Carrington Valentine this past week. So, yeah, if you can stay healthy, I mean, that's oftentimes what is going to separate you from making the playoffs or not making the playoffs. So it just makes it that much more important as time goes on.
Yeah, I think not only is Alexander's injury one to watch, but Christian Watson's. I know Rappaport reported he's an IR candidate and will be out a couple weeks. LaFleur would say today that he's out at least a week or so, he thinks. So I don't really know what that means.
It looked like it could have been a lot worse.
He's not playing on Sunday.
Yeah, it looked like it could have been a lot worse. I don't know.
Yeah.
If it's only a couple of weeks, man, I thought he snapped his ankle at original blush. Then he was able to put weight on it, so maybe that wasn't the initial concern. But then the cart comes out and he's hopping onto the cart and then hopping off. Just that kid is just so snake bitten. I feel just awful for Christian Watson. Just one injury after another. Just a route that was right over the middle that he had to, the ball was placed a little bit behind him by the quarterback and didn't really put him in a great position to catch that ball. And unfortunately got his leg kind of caught in there. But yeah, I thought it was a lot worse at first than what it turned out to be.
Yeah, and then you have Devontae Wyatt, who's been a nice piece to the pass rush and the interior this year. Suffered an ankle injury and did not return yesterday. So that'll be one to monitor. Watson, Alexander, Devontae Wyatt. Then Jordan Morgan, the rookie right guard, is another one to monitor. The Packers never put him on IR. So this would be his third game that he does not play coming up against the Rams. Obviously, at the onset of this injury, they didn't anticipate him missing 4. Otherwise, they would have put him on IR. They wanted to give him the chance to return before that. So we'll see if he's on the practice field. He hasn't practiced the last couple weeks, so he needs to just get back on the field. I don't know if there's a spot in the lineup for him right now. Sean Ryan has filled in, and now, I'm not going to say he was Wally pipped, but there doesn't seem like a clear path for those rotational snaps for Jordan Morgan to get. But those 4 injuries are the ones to watch coming up this week. And then obviously how Jordan Love feels coming out of the game. LaFleur, as I mentioned, said today he was sore, but okay. Now we'll see if he ramps up his practice participation from limited to full. But regardless, I would expect Jordan Love to play on Sunday. We'll see if the Packers can get a win against the Rams. They just lost to the Bears in Chicago. They're 1-3. They should win on paper. I believe the Packers are 3.5-point favorites, but that's why they play the game, because anything can happen. We got to get to a break here on this Monday, September 30th edition of the Matt Schneidman Show. After the break, our final judgments. I've got mine in the back of my head, Doug. Get yours ready. Get yours on the barn burner, the Brunson burner, the Bunsen burner,
There's
whatever
a
that
Bunsen
is.
burner.
Bunsen burner?
I believe so, yeah.
I was thinking Jalen Brunson. Get yours ready, because we're getting into that, presented by Habush, and Rotier after the break. Stay with us right here on the Matt Schneidman Show on the Game. Back here on the Matt Schneidman Show, Monday, September 30th, dissecting the Packers 31-29 loss to the Vikings yesterday as they head to Los Angeles to face the Rams on Sunday afternoon. The CBS A team calling that game. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson. But now it's time for our final judgments presented by Habush, and Rotier. Doug?
Yeah.
Let's talk kicking.
You're going where I was going.
My final judgment is that Braden Narveson is not the guy for the Packers.
Yeah.
Now, there's a reason I'm not a GM, because I would cut him right now. Because I, like Brian Gutekunst, would probably be too reactionary and too, judgmental off of small sample size. Brian Gutekunst said himself he hasn't exercised the patience he should with specialists, and specifically brought up J.K. Scott, of all people, who has become a stellar punter with the Los Angeles Chargers after leaving the Packers, who they drafted, or they drafted him in 2018, the 5th round, I believe. This came the day after, or 2 days after, they cut Anders Carlson. Now, if they're going to move on after one season and an offseason and preseason from a 6th round pick from the year prior, that shows they're capable of moving on from an undrafted rookie who they didn't even draft and just claimed off waivers, who can't, consistently make kicks, has already missed 4 this season in 4 games, 5 if you count the one that was negated, which it doesn't count in the box score, so I don't think we can count that one. They're capable of it, but will they? Matt LaFleur gave a very strong vote of confidence for Braden Narveson after the game yesterday, which I was a little surprised by. Basically said, I wouldn't flinch in putting him out there in a similar situation. Well, I would flinch because everything goes right. Most things go right. He at least hasn't missed an extra point yet. But Brian Gutekunst said after roster cutdown day, in not these exact words, but he basically said, our team is too good to waste it on an inconsistent young kicker, as a justification for parting ways with Anders Carlson. So I guess I understand not parting ways after 4 weeks, because you like what you see behind the scenes and in practice, and you like his alignment, you like the contact he makes on the ball. But at the same time, this is a results-based business. I don't care if he makes 100% of his kicks in practice. If he, misses one each game, or, keeps missing, you got to get rid of him. And I get that there aren't just NFL caliber kickers sitting on the street. I get that you can't just keep cycling through them, because the reason some guys are not employed right now is because they're not good enough. But this guy just doesn't seem like he's it. Maybe I'm wrong. He could very well prove me wrong. I mean, Anders Carlson didn't miss a kick until week 7 last year, a field goal until week 7, and then fell apart. Maybe it's the reverse for Braden Narveson, but right now, my final judgment, is that Braden Narveson does not look like the guy.
Okay. I was going to go there too, but I've got a second one that I don't want to copycat you. I will say this about Braden Narveson. I would cut him. I'm sorry. He's missed a field goal in every game. I know in game 3, it was called back because of a penalty. He still missed a kick. As we have discussed, the job is to put the ball there, not over here, there. If you miss a kick, great. He missed 2 kicks yesterday. Missed a kick in week 1. Missed a kick in week 2. Missed a kick in week 3, but was saved because of a penalty. Missed 2 kicks. He's missed 4 kicks in 4 weeks. That is unacceptable. I'm sorry. Nice kid. I wish him well. But that's not acceptable for a team this good. I agree with Brian Gutekunst. He's right. This football team is too good to have games screwed up or be resting on the leg of an inconsistent kicker. Sorry. End of story. There are kickers out there that are NFL quality. You just got to find one. And I don't know if it's going to be Alex Hale or not. I don't know if it's,
no way.
Probably not. But he's there. I don't know if it's Anders Carlson or not. Probably not. That would I'm not sure that would assuage anyone in the fan base that, goes to the pro shop and plunks down their hard-earned cash for some green and gold wear. There's got to be somebody out there who can kick consistently. There's got to be. You just can't afford to have a guy go out there and miss field goals. All right. So my final judgment is not going to be on Braden Narveson, because I've said my piece about the kicker and I don't want to copycat you, but I will say this. The other specialist they have, I think, is one of the best in the NFL, if not the best in the NFL. Daniel Whelan is doing everything that you could want.
He's nasty.
He's incredible. And we knew this going into yesterday, but yesterday, 3 punts, averaged 60 yards a punt, put 2 inside the 20, had a 74-yarder. Daniel Whelan is doing everything you could possibly want your punter to do. Where they found, maybe they can he kick? I don't know. Daniel Whelan might be
onside kicks.
Sure,
no, not
maybe
quite.
not onside kicks. Didn't. That was more of kind of like a putt, as opposed to one with the big hopper. Anyway, that's maybe they found his limit. But Daniel Whelan, I think. I would never say the Packers are ever going to have a Pro Bowl punter, because when the weather turns, things get a little bit weird in Green Bay and it tamps down your average or anything like that. But if they're ever going to have a punter who's worthy of the Pro Bowl or being named to a Pro Bowl, it might be Daniel Whelan. He's been incredible.
Yeah, that 59-yarder that kind of sailed over Jalen Naylor's head yesterday, that forced the muff, and then Bo Melton recovered it. And oh, my thing's fallen. My mount that I have my camera attached to for my StreamYard for the stream has fallen. So don't mind that. That 59-yard punt was a thing of beauty. Forced the muff. Packers recover it at the 3. You can't advance a muffed punt, so that's why it didn't count as a touchdown. And for those saying just let the ball roll into the end zone, you can't take the risk of that.
Ball.
Why does this keep falling? I'll fix it during the next break. I'll just hold it right now. And that ball was also rolling sideways. So I don't even think it would have gone into the end zone. But then he had, and this is not the first time he's done it this year, he did it against the Colts, out of his own end zone, a 60-yarder, didn't force a fair catch, but both gunners, I don't recall who they were there in position to make a tackle, and the returner split them and got a 10-yard return. But it's not like that punt didn't have any hang time. 60 yards with no hang time is one thing. 60 yards with 5.36 hang time, which is what I counted it as when I rewatched the game this morning and did the stopwatch on my phone. Remarkable. I don't know if he's going to make an all-pro team or a Pro Bowl team, but he's off to a great start. And you don't always want your punter to be the guy in the news and the best player on the team, and I'm not saying he is, but that's a weapon they have. So I like that one as your final judgment. A specialist-only final judgment.
Yeah, on opposite ends. I mean, I remember I talked to Ted Thompson after the 2010 season, but in January 2011, the NFC Championship game in Chicago against the Bears. And he told me that he thought his MVP that day was Tim Masthay, the punter. So it can make a difference. And there were a lot of things that went well for the Packers on that day. BJ Raji with the fat guy touchdown. So many things got them to Super Bowl 45 that day, but the punter was the one guy that the general manager really singled out post game. And, I can't argue with him there, because if you've got a guy who can be that field flipper, man, that's just a weapon that is one of those intangibles that Green Bay hasn't always had. And it was a cold day in Chicago, as you might suspect. And it was in Chicago, the wind's whipping off the lake, and sometimes things get a little bit strange when the wind is whipping off the lake at Soldier Field. And Masthay was awesome. And Whelan was awesome yesterday, and he's been awesome since he's been in Green Bay.
That right there, as we do every Monday or the day after every game, were our final judgments presented by Habush, and Rotier. National reputation, hometown service. Go to habush.com. That's HABUSH.com. Now let's talk pass rush, Doug. We praised it, and I think rightfully so, last week after 8 sacks against the Titans. Yesterday, 2 sacks, but the pressure was not good. They pressured Sam Darnold, according to True Media, on 33.3% of his dropbacks. So a third. That would rank about 20th in the league, for the entire season. 33.3% would rank about 20th. The league average is about 1.5% higher than that. I think it's like 34.8 is where the number 15 team ranks. The Packers don't really blitz a lot. They blitzed on a little over 21% of the snaps. Neither sack. Now, I wonder if the one Sam Darnold just fell down on is the sack. I know Quay Walker had the one. I can't recall off the top of my head what the other sack was. I think it was the one.
It was a strip sack, wasn't it?
Huh?
Strip sack?
Oh, that's what it was. Of course. It was Keyshawn Nixon's strip sack. Yeah. But True Media, was that a blitz? I mean, I understand Keyshawn Nixon blitzed on that play, but you got to go back and look if they sent more than 4 on that play. Bottom line is the Packers didn't generate much pressure yesterday with 4 as much as they did or as much havoc as they caused with 4 against the Titans. They didn't sack Sam Darnold enough, especially early. Just, watching the game without knowing any of those numbers, it seemed like he had all day in the pocket. Take a listen to what Matt LaFleur said today in his Monday press conference about the pass rush. He did not mince words about the performance from that unit yesterday.
But I thought collectively as a unit, they did a really nice job. They did a good job utilizing chips on the edges. I thought the backs helped out and pass pro pretty good. So all in all, I don't think it was good enough, especially when we had the 4-man rushes. We were able to generate some pressure, obviously, when we started to give them some of those looks where we mugged up our backers in the A gaps. Quay got through one time on that 2nd and long to sack Darnold and make it 3rd and forever. Obviously, Keyshawn came untouched off the edge. That was a big time play in the game that really gave us an opportunity to get back in the game and make it a close game.
Yeah, as I mentioned, with their blitzes, they generated pressure on 71.4% of the blitzes, but they only blitzed 21.5% of the time or something like that. Like LaFleur said, 4-man rushes didn't generate enough pressure. The hot topic is Rashawn Gary, because anytime you go a stretch without, sacks, I believe he had one week 1. Anytime you go a stretch without sacks and you're paid that much, people are going to look at it. I have to watch the film back to see how much he was double teamed and chipped. Preston Smith, post-game yesterday, did mention how the Vikings utilize screens and chips to kind of neutralize the pass rushers, but he also said they need to be better. And that's the fact of the matter. Now, does Rashawn Gary need to be better? Absolutely. I did notice a couple one-on-ones where, the tackle held him off. I got to go back and look for fuller context, because as much as, people would like a reactionary reaction, I think it's fair to look for a little bit more context and say, how much was he chipped? How much was he double teamed? How much were they just throwing screens to his side and he didn't even have enough time to get home? So we'll see. But at the end of the day, he's paid not as much as the Nick Bosa's, the TJ Watts, the Myles Garrett's, the Micah Parsons. But Rashawn Gary just doesn't make plays like those guys do.
Right.
And obviously, I have to look at the numbers, the Max Crosby's too. You're getting paid similarly to them. You got to start making plays regardless of what's thrown at you, because those guys, I'm imagining, again, I don't think this is too far-fetched of an assumption without having the numbers right in front of me. Those guys probably get chipped and double teamed too. So
without a doubt. I mean, you can't go into a game against the Steelers without knowing where TJ Watt is. You can't go into a game against the Browns without knowing where Myles Garrett is. It doesn't work that way, and they're still getting there. So I think there is some disappointment about the production of Rashawn Gary, and I think it's warranted, because those guys, all the ones that you mentioned, I mean, yeah, they get the attention too. And with Rashawn Gary, I think he took a step. He took, there was a big step that he took, and now it's just that next step to, get him to that elite status. But it's a big step to make, and he just hasn't made it yet.
Had a nice stop on an Aaron Jones outside run near the goal line yesterday.
Sure did.
But the reason I say I want to look for more context is because of context, not contacts, is because of plays like the one I'm about to mention. And I believe we have some audio of LaFleur discussing it as well. That second interception that Jordan Love threw yesterday, where it goes through Luke Musgrave's hands and then it hits off Romeo Doubs' chest. You're thinking, why are those two guys, lined up basically vertically, one on top of each other? Well, Jordan Love said post-game that he was trying to throw to Doubs. So the common next thought is, so why was Musgrave there? Is Jordan Love supposed to just throw it right through his chest and have it not touch him? No, obviously. I saw on Twitter people hypothesizing that Musgrave ran the wrong route. No, that was not the case either. That's why I say, don't be so quick to judge why a certain play happened. Someone's at fault, obviously, because the play was an interception. But for a good amount of plays, I like to just, and this is not like a woe is me, do as I say thing, but just because someone is closest to the ball on defense when the other team has a catch, or just because an interception is thrown, or just because someone seems like they're in the wrong spot, there's always a lot more, often, I should say, a lot more than meets the eye behind some of these plays. as is evidenced by this Matt LaFleur explanation for what happened on that second interception and what should have happened instead. On the interception that Jordan said he was throwing to Romeo, is Luke just in the wrong spot there?
No.
So it looked like they're right in the same line. What was supposed to happen differently on that play?
Well, it's a classic high-low. And what happened, we're calling it for a different coverage. And Harrison Smith was inside out of Rome. Really, we want that Rome's route to be straight vertical so that he can wrap Luke. And he got widened. He went outside of Harrison Smith. And so that when he did widen, they were in the same window. So it's bad distribution. That's not what we want.
So Luke is thinking at that time the ball's coming for him.
Yeah, he's in a tough spot. Like he thinks it's a high ball to him. Again, bad distribution. And and in Jordan's defense, he has a free runner running right at his face. That shouldn't be there. I mean, he should be picked up in protection. We're not in scat protection. So we got to make sure that we step up, we make that block, and then I think he can make a better decision and hopefully just drop it down. Because if the spacing is a little off, like just take the gimme.
So is Luke Musgrave at fault? No, he was literally the least at fault on that play. Maybe Romeo Dobbs for how he ran the route, or whoever was supposed to pick up the free runner, or Jordan Love for not just dumping it down. The anatomy of a play. And I think that's why it's important and why I enjoy this job so much, is because you learn so much going to the facility every day, talking to these players, talking to these coaches, instead of just watching something on TV and assuming what was supposed to happen based on that.
Oh yeah,
That's my
always
TED
easy.
Talk for the day, Doug.
No, but it's a good TED Talk because there are the game of football. There are so many nuances to it that people don't understand, and I don't fully understand. It's only by listening to some of the explanations when it is broken down like that you get kind of a true appreciation for how intricate offensive play calling is and how important it is that every player does, complete their assignment and complete it properly, run the correct route, don't take plays off, block the guy that you're supposed to block, just little things like that, if the television camera doesn't catch it, oftentimes you don't see it and you don't realize it and you don't know it, even though, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm not pointing fingers at any fans or anybody. I'll point thumbs before fingers. You just don't know. You don't realize it until, you do get a breakdown like that from somebody whose job it is 24/7 to understand exactly who's supposed to be where and what that play design is actually supposed to look like.
Totally agree. Let's get to one more break. On the other side, we'll wrap up some loose odds and ends from the game. Tucker Kraft's up and down day. Keyshawn Nixon's up and down day. They're paying a guy $6 million to play nickel, I guess, which is important. But part of that money is for him to return kicks, and he's just not returning kicks. Obviously, that's not his fault, but will he get a chance to do that this year when the weather gets colder? We shall see. Plenty more to discuss from yesterday's Vikings 31-29 win over the Packers as we begin to look ahead to next Sunday's game in Los Angeles against the Rams. Stick with us right here on the Matt Schneidman Show on the Game. Let's talk Iron Jock hoodies and their new all-purpose joggers. Now through October 13th, when you purchase men's or women's hoodies and joggers, use promo code FALL30, that's FALL30, to receive 30% off every hoodie and jogger in your cart. And you'll also get a free Iron Jock travel towel. Go to ironjock.com for details. That's ironjoc.com. The text line is a buzz, Doug.
It is a buzz, as a matter of fact. This is from the 414 and doesn't sign it. Just says, sometimes football is a very complex game that requires a tremendous amount of context to understand. And sometimes it's just dead simple. Fans will always bellyache because they assume it's always simple. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of fandom. You can be reactionary. You can be emotional. But it's my job to help provide some context.
Let's see. Jeff in a truck says we have the best punter. We were talking about Daniel Whelan before.
Fair.
Unnamed in the 920, Pete Rose is joining Dikembe Mutombo. Okay. They're having dinner tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Grumpy Steve in Greenfield says, what's going on with Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark? It appears both of them have mailed it in.
Okay.
Not from Grumpy Steve.
I sometimes ask coordinators and coaches questions just to, I wouldn't say, shove it up the listeners and callers, but to provide some of that context, respectfully, of course. And I've been seeing a lot of Kenny Clark, well, maybe not a lot, but a couple people, mailbags, callers, whatever. Kenny Clark isn't doing anything. He doesn't have any TFLs or sacks. So I asked Jeff Hafley about it, and sure, it's coach speak. Maybe he's just defending his guy. So take it with a grain of salt. But he basically said Kenny's doing everything we're asking of him. He's taking on double teams. He's stopping the run. Against the Titans, Jeff Hafley said we wouldn't have had those 8 sacks if it wasn't for Kenny Clark. So, as I said, there's more than just TFLs and sacks. Those are the most important things because that ends a play. Those are the impact plays. But sometimes you'll take on a double team that leads to a TFL or sack. Sometimes you'll get a pressure that leads to an incompletion or an interception. Pressures are good. They're not great because sometimes, as we saw on Sunday, Sam Darnold can get out of pressure. I believe he completed 4 of 6 passes for 53 yards against pressure and scrambled 3 times for 23 yards. So that's still pretty good against pressure. Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark are going to have to start, I don't want to say producing soon because they are doing that to an extent, but those sacks and TFLs have to start coming. It can't just be a full season of, well, they're doing other things because those guys are paid too much to just do other things.
Let's see. In the 414, does not sign it. Says, okay, boys, accuse me of being someone who wears green and gold colored glasses if you might, but in the 2 losses, Jordan Love has been bad. I'm confident that he will not be bad all season. Even with him being bad, they were 1 to 2 plays away from winning both. This team will keep getting better and will be in the mix for the NFC North title by the end of the season.
I wouldn't say he's been bad. He hasn't been great.
Yeah.
But he's only played 2 games. So we'll see if that accuracy improves. We'll see if some of these decisions improve. I think he'll be all right. Now, like we said before the season, it's probably unrealistic to expect him to consistently play like an MVP, like he did the second half of last season. But even just below that, I think we'll be fine for the Packers. We haven't gotten that yet the first 2 games, but plenty of season left, everybody.
A lot of ball game left. Lumberjack Pete writes, Quay showed up a little.
Quay's a good player.
Yeah, he is.
Played every single defensive snap. That right there should tell you how the coaching staff feels about him.
Mm-hmm.
Drew Olson, I don't think wants him on the field, but Quay's a dynamic player that they can use. And as you heard in that LaFleur audio earlier, he gives them an interesting element when he mugs up on the line of scrimmage with another linebacker. He blitzes. He's had a couple of those this year. He can cause havoc. He's quick. He's instinctive. He tackles well, I think. He's a good player, contrary to what some people think.
There's a couple that I don't want to read.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
A couple guys I want to talk about. Tucker Kraft, I think, is a really good player. I think the snap count was 65 to 25 over Musgrave in favor of Kraft. Listen, Tucker Kraft's just a better all-around tight end right now. He just is. Yes, he had the fumble. Got to clean that up. Tucker Kraft said it makes him sick to his stomach thinking about having to put the defense back on the field, with the Packers having a chance to go down and cut it to, I think it was 31-22 at the time, and he had the ball punched out by Byron Murphy. But Tucker Kraft's normally good at yards after the catch. The 13 yak he got on his touchdown catch was really impressive. Broke one tackle, bulldozed over another, somehow stayed in bounds. We've seen him do stuff like that after the catch before. He can block. He's just a better all-around tight end right now. Obviously, he can't fumble the ball like that, which he knows. But I like where Tucker Kraft's at if I'm the Packers. Now, I mentioned Keyshawn Nixon. Part of the reason you're paying him, I think, $6 million a year is because of his kick return prowess. Teams have completely neutralized him. He's returned one kick this season, and it was the one he shouldn't have returned against the Eagles late in the game. He's not the best cornerback. I think he's been solid this year. The missed tackle can't happen on the Jordan Addison end around. Couldn't really have done much on the Jefferson touchdown catch. He loses Jefferson on the crosser, which a lot of people are going to lose Justin Jefferson on a crosser. Is that worth $6 million? Just him being a nickel? Probably not. But he'll have to make it worth it if the other teams start kicking to him. Maybe not intentionally, but when the weather gets colder and the ball doesn't fly as far because it hardens up later in the season.
I would like to see the NFL do something again about they
mid-season or after the season.
Yeah, they can't really do it mid-season. I mean, I suppose it's their game, their rules, they can do whatever they want, but it's just boring. I know what they were trying to do, but I don't know if it's moving the kicker back another 5 yards. I don't know if it's going back to the way that kickoffs were and as well as moving the kicker back another 5 yards. I don't think this dynamic thing is doing what it was intended to do. It's just, when a team scores a touchdown, I mean, the extra points are still pretty automatic. I know it's not 20 yards, it's 33 yards now. They've tried to, add some spice to that. Okay, great. It's still pretty automatic that you've got about a 5-minute window to go to the bathroom because there's not going to be a kickoff return. You got about 5 minutes to take care of what you got to take care of. You need a snack, you got 5 minutes. You need to go, answer nature's call, you got about 5 minutes. And that's the one thing that the NFL wanted to avoid by, trying to make there's enough commercials. Let's add a little action to something that's gotten terribly boring. Well, the intent was there, but the execution has failed miserably.
Around the league, I'd have to look at the numbers to see how many kicks are being returned, but certainly in Green Bay, it's not having the desired effect. Keyshawn Nixon, I think, said before the season that he was going to go back-to-back first team All-Pro. I remember when the news came out, I was in Orlando at the owners meeting. I think it was in Orlando this year. And Keyshawn, I think, tweeted a smiley face or something, just how happy he was because the rules were supposed to incentivize more, kickoffs to allow guys to return because you would just be giving the other team another 5 yards if you booted into the end zone. But teams are clearly willing to give the Packers that extra 5 yards if it means not allowing Keyshawn Nixon the chance to break one.
Yeah, so, maybe you make it at the 30. Maybe you put the ball on the 35-yard line. I mean, just keep moving it up.
That might be the change. But Rich Bisaccia has said part of his job is to make sure Keyshawn doesn't get frustrated, which has already happened. So we'll see what happens on that front. On this front, we're going to be talking to you guys again tomorrow.
Oh,
what a world!
Daily
radio show.
I'm on Brewers beat for the next couple of nights. So you know who you get in here?
Who do I get?
You get Red Hot.
Oh, okay.
You get Red Hot Tim Scott.
My boss.
You get the boss.
He's not on Brewers duty. He wants to be on Brewers duty. Nobody wants to produce this show when the Brewers are in the playoffs.
Well, so we have to allocate resources as we need to. And Hunter and I will be down at the ballpark, so you get Red Hot in here tomorrow.
What time is that Brewers game tomorrow?
4:30. 4:30 against the Mets. So they get to fly.
Go
they
Brewers.
Were just here over the weekend. Then they had to fly to Atlanta to play 2. MLB told both teams don't celebrate after the first game because it's bad form. We want it to, look like everybody's trying for the sake of the Diamondbacks and for the sake of the integrity of the game. Okay, great. So the final out was made, and then both teams are celebrating with champagne in the locker room in their respective clubhouses, which is, I've never seen that before.
I think the Brewers are going to beat the Mets.
Hope so. That'd be nice.
I really hope
it's good
so.
for business.
Not only because I don't like the Mets, but because I want to see that Yankees-Brewers World Series, and because I would just want to troll Brewers fans in that World Series and lose half of our listenership when that does happen.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah,
you know,
I might lose
good
more than
listen, good rivalries are good rivalries. And anytime you've got David against Goliath, and that's how Brewers fans view their team versus the Yankees, David versus Goliath, it can make for a great story. So that's what we all want, right? Great stories.
Or Yankees Dodgers. That would be fine too. Anyway.
Sick of the Dodgers.
I will talk to you tomorrow along with Red Hot Tim Scott, my boss on the 1s and 2s. That should be interesting. We'll see how that goes. Until then, he's Doug, the great Doug Russell. I'm Matt. Appreciate everyone for listening. As always, we'll catch you tomorrow.